before you ask, I am okay. The seizure only lasted for a minute. I am calm, and I don't think I'll have another one. And I'm sorry for not responding to your 17 calls. That's technically my snack. I bought it with my own money. Are we still going to the woods?
Can we go in an hour? I should be okay then.
You won't, Miles. Please listen to what I'm gonna say.
Here we go.
We'd be in the middle of nowhere where I can't help you.
I never asked you to do that.
Then don't put me in that position. I'm tired of being the one to make your gears turn, Miles. I know life sucks right now in ways, but I've got my own stuff too, and it seems like you forget that sometimes.
I'm the one who deals with seizures. You would never know what it's like. It really sucks.
You're right. I don't know, I would never know, and it's all about you and your convenience. You know what? I'm tired of being your phone-a-friend.
I'm not the one who called 17 times and then walked right on in. I never asked you to be here.
Because you didn't answer. You don't answer. You just sit around being complacent in your situation.
I thought you were leaving.
My fire is starved of oxygen. A flicker in the howling wind. Beware, the night is closing in. And if I fall asleep, the shadows win. Where the darkness came to take my faith. It tried to steal my words to pray. My love came down like holy rain, and she became my God that day. she became my God that day. She taught me how to think out loud, to listen where there ain't no sound, to love myself through all the doubt, to sing and make my mother proud. Ooh, to sing and make my mother proud.
Hello, please leave a message after the tone.
Hey, I just got up and I shot around a bit. There's a shot in particular that is kind of cool, actually. It's... Hey, I think I'm gonna do it. I've had a good stretch, and I'm about to pack my bag. I'm moving by my own gears now. I just wanted to pass this along to you because... On Christmas Eve? Where else would I go? Is your shoulder okay? I think so. Good, because relocation is a no-go for me. Miles, just so you know,
I haven't been ignoring you. I just needed the space as much as you did.
I'm sorry it had to come to that. I just wanted to beat it for once. I went there to overcome it, and now I can't go. I can't.
Miles, listen. Your trip, it might not happen today or tomorrow, but it will happen. It will. Miles, look at me. It will happen. We started off in the same boat. Just a couple of sick kids. That's how we were introduced. That's how we bonded. I found my guide in the sand, and you're finding your guided imagery, your paradise in the woods. You will breathe in that unclaimed air, feel the leaves between your fingers and the rush of wind above you. I set my sail a while ago, and I came out the other side. It will happen, Miles. It will.
Oh my.
All right. Justen, that was fabulous. Thank you so much for creating such a great film. Justen, that was fabulous. Thank you so much. right. So next, it looks like we still have, several people kind of still watching. And so what we're going to do now is have a Q&A panel with our panelists here. And what we're going to do is first, I just want to thank everybody for coming out and watching Paradise and to learn a little bit more about F&D and functional seizures. My name is Amanda Hopper. I am the executive director of F&D Hope US. I have a daughter with F&D and functional seizures. So I am going to ask some questions of our panelists tonight, and hopefully we'll raise a little bit of education and awareness about functional seizures, F&D, and also talk a little bit more about the film. And so we're going to start with, we're going to go around and get to know everybody a little bit better. And so everybody first is going to tell us a little bit about themselves and why they are interested in F&D, kind of what brought them to this topic. So Justen, can we start with you first?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. My audio wasn't going through for a second. Yeah. I there's a lot of different starting points, but I would say kind of my personal history with F&D. It started with me an experience in 2014. I had a allergic reaction to antidepressants, and through that experience, I had serotonin syndrome and had a seizure like reaction, and or actually, yeah, I had it. My body seized up, and from that, I developed F&D, or my body was having the same reaction, although it's not caused by serotonin production anymore. And after that, then through that journey, I was originally diagnosed with conversion disorder, and then over time, I've gotten a better understanding of the condition, and then connecting with Amanda this year in regards to Paradise. I had gained a really good, a lot better of an understanding of functional neurological disorder, and that being a really great representation of what I experienced and what so many other people experience. And specifically with the film Paradise, as a filmmaker, I try to have a degree of separation between life and art, and so so that's kind of a healthy, happy medium in between the two. Just since I don't want to go one way and not be truthful, and another way of just of not having any creativity and just kind of re-representing directly my life. So with this film, I had a significant seizure last fall that kind of changed a lot of what was going on in my life at that time, and I had a lot of there was a lot of after effects from it, both situationally and health-wise. And at that point, I had, was kind of thinking to myself, I kind of said, screw it, I'm going to start writing about what I'm experiencing with this. Just because it finally kind of felt inspired to, and found a way to represent the story so that it really is kind of a genuine story where it isn't a casting a dour experience on somebody who has F&D, or more, and specifically through my experience with F&D, since I know it can be represented in a lot of different ways to a lot of different people, and through that, I eventually came to the developing the script of Paradise. That was its own challenge of trying to find the right representation of my experience, and then COVID there was the first wave of Omicron, which made it a unique challenge to film the production. Um, we had a couple delays because of it, and eventually uh, we're able to film it in February. And we almost weren't able to because the weekend prior I was rear-ended and and sustained a concussion. So uh, I was good enough to film, but I wasn't 100%. And we all kind of rallied around each other uh, and made the movie, and it really meant a lot to be able to make the movie. Just because it's the first time that I represented this experience creatively, and and I did it in a way where it felt like this character named Miles was able to have their own experience and not just be, this be a direct uh, copy and paste of Justen. So that was something I was really encouraged about when it all kind of, came together. And then at the same time it was honest, and it was uh, and one thing I want to say is that I've had a lot of support over the years, and I know in the film the character Miles is more isolated, to where the friendship is just between uh, them and Birdie. But now it's kind of more of a creative choice. So I just want to say that part of the film is more of a creative choice, since I was very fortunate to get a lot of support over the years.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin. I will just say about the isolation, I think it was a good choice because I know a lot of people with F&D specifically, they do feel isolated. They feel a lack of support, and so I think that choice probably is really good for a lot of experiences that people with F&D have. So I know there are people that do have that support, but I know the isolation, the feeling is very real. So we're going to jump on over to Miles because he's next on my screen. So Miles, will you just introduce yourself a little bit and what's your involvement with Paradise?
Yeah, I'm Miles, unrelated. And however, I do have seizures. I'm also a filmmaker, but I have epilepsy, so it's a different side. But it was cool to see a script from Justen, um, that hits so close to home, right? That is so many things that I know, and you can tell it just comes from the bottom of his heart. And Justen and I have been through a lot of very similar experiences over the last 4 or 5 years. And I also am a filmmaker, made a film about a character who has seizures, and it's subject matter that's really important because it's not spoken about. And I say that there's 2 cures for seizures. There's the medical cure on which we wait, and there is the cure for cruelty, which is empathy. And the only real way to get people to acknowledge and deal with the comorbidities to seizures, the social comorbidities, which are the way people treat patients who have seizures, the way families and friends misunderstand, those things can often be, the part of the condition that's deadly. And awareness events are really difficult because people show up to awareness events who are aware. So how do you get people in the room who actually stand to learn something? And I think that movies and television are really the only way. Short of going to schools and things like that. So I really think this is great, Justen. And I'm really just thrilled to just share a movement with you. And I think it's it's really special. I'm sure you'll say so, Justen, when you know your work is for something. It's fun to make work and share it with your friends and be like, oh, I made something. I want you to see a piece of who I am. But there's someone out there who's watching this who wasn't going to talk about it, and now they are. And that's irreplaceable. So congratulations, Justen.
Thanks so much, Miles. And we will definitely talk about your film, Under the Lights, here in a little bit. So Abrianna, let's go to you next. Can you introduce yourself a little bit and your involvement with the film?
Yeah, so hi, my name's Abrianna Aydee. I played Miles in the film, unrelated. Well, related to this, but unrelated to Miles. I am a student, but I study psychology and theater. So doing projects like this mean a lot to me. It's exactly why I got into the like merging of these two studies. I think it's really important to show people that their experiences are like they're there, and that they are important, and that they have voices, and that they have experiences that we care about and want to give voice to. Right? I think that's why I do theater, why I do art, why I, work on this film with Justen is that picking certain subject matter, sorry, there's a lot going on, that like doing projects like this are what inspire me to do things. It's what inspires me to continue to pursue art, to continue to pursue psychology, because at the end of the day, it's about giving voices to people who would never see their experiences on stage or on a screen up until now. So I'm very thankful and very honored to get to put my name to this project, and also just to be involved in something really great with all of the rest of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being in the film and helping to bring awareness. Next, we have Dr. Ben Tolchin. Dr. Tolchin, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with F&D?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Ben Tolchin. I'm a neurologist and an epileptologist at the Yale Comprehensive Epilepsy Center and at the Yale New Haven Health Center for Clinical Ethics. And I both work in diagnosing and caring for people with functional seizures, as well as other functional neurologic disorders and epileptic seizures as well. And I think something that I see both in everyday clinical care as well as in clinical research is a real lack of awareness and a lot of stigma around functional seizures in particular. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to participate in this premiere, and I really appreciate this movie for raising awareness and starting to humanize the condition. I think is a really important effort, and I hope that other movies and other art can start to move the needle in that direction.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tolchin. Bridget, you are next. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Bridget Mildon, and I am the CEO and founder of F&D Hope. And I started F&D Hope around 2012 after I'd received the diagnosis and found that through my journey in trying to find help, the stigma that I ran into was really creating a barrier to my ability to find care. And so part of the reason of founding F&D Hope was to give patients a voice and a platform for our voices to be heard, and also to establish a platform where we as patients could then begin to do research and support one another and find a community. And it's exciting to see what started out as just a grassroots movement has turned into, all these people around the world getting together and really trying to spread awareness and support one another. And I'm really excited to see the ways and the creativity that is coming from that. And so this is just, I think, another avenue that people can express themselves. And so it's been wonderful to be a part of that. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So Bridget, we're actually going to stay with you for a minute and let's talk a little bit more about F&D Hope in specifics. So can you tell us a little bit more about F&D Hope, what it is, what you do?
What I do a lot of different things just to keep it running, but a lot of their volunteers actually are the ones engaging with everybody. And uh, the purpose of FND Hope, as I kind of mentioned, was to promote awareness, and we want to see FND to become a household name. It's very common. People should know what it is. The other is to just support affected individuals, and that includes their families, because FND, when someone's ill, it's not just them, it's also their family and friends, that their lives are impacted as well. And so it's about coming together as an entire community. And we do that through some of the online programs that have been established with virtual meetups and things of that nature. And then also advancing research, as I mentioned, is really important. I believe we've helped with over 80 something projects just in the last couple of years. And also we have a peer registry that we have established. Right now it's down as we're ramping up some of the technology with that. And so we're hoping to have that on up and going here in the next few months. But it's going to really, I think, change how we can interact as patients with the medical community and really help universally move research forward. And so those are kind of our priorities, and also bringing more awareness to pediatric children who experience symptoms is also a main priority that we're trying to work towards. And Amanda, you know that you've been working with specifically with that. But those are just some of the projects, I guess, that we've been kind of working on and trying to focus on.
Right. Right. FND Hope, globally, I think we have representation in a lot of the countries globally, because it is a global disorder. It is something that is common. And so I think we're doing a lot of really great work around the world, and I'm excited about all the projects we have going on. If anybody has questions about FND Hope, you can always go to our website, fndhope.org. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. So find us, like us, follow us. So next, we're going to go to Dr. Tolchin. Can you tell us a little bit more? We've heard about FND Hope. We keep hearing this term, FND, functional seizures. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is FND and what are functional seizures?
Sure, yeah. So functional seizures, also known in the literature as psychogenic non-epileptic seizures or dissociative seizures, are a common form of functional neurological disorder. And they involve involuntary movements and altered consciousness, and are thought to be caused by a complex interplay of psychological, biological, and social causes. They frequently, but not always, are associated with adverse psychological experiences, including abuse, neglect, and other psychological traumas, but not in all cases. They're also thought to be associated with chronic physiologic stress. And I think it's important to understand that functional neurologic disorders is sort of a broader umbrella that includes functional seizures, and are fairly common. They're seen in about 16% of neurology clinic visits. So that's comparable to like multiple sclerosis, for example, which is a fairly well-known neurologic disorder, and cause very high rates of suffering and disability, and are, I think that is complicated by the lack of knowledge, both among the general public and unfortunately also among the medical community, which can make it very difficult for patients to get properly diagnosed and properly treated. There are, in fact, effective evidence-based psychotherapeutic and physical therapy treatments for functional seizures and other functional neurologic disorders, but in many cases it's very difficult for patients to get access to those evidence-based treatments because of the lack of knowledge and stigma. And so I think that's the work of FND Hope and of films like this is very important in getting treatment for patients quickly and effectively.
great. Thank you so much. So, Justin, let's go back to you a little bit. And you talked a little bit about the inspiration behind the film, but can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think, uh, yeah, directly is to kind of also answer a question in the chat. I was inspired and decided to make the film, so I'll break it up into inspired to make the film as kind of expression and also representation. And having spent so much time in the film community, there is a huge impact of what representation feels like, and if you are able to, see yourself in something, whether it's, uh, you know, like completely or partially, that is something that can't be recreated. And it gives awareness and opportunities that wouldn't be there. I know an example in the film industry is having more opportunities for or having films that are directed by women, and having seeing movies that are um, directed by women, it inspires people. Inspires uh, individuals to make movies because they see themselves in the film, or see themselves like saying, "Hey, I can do this too," and without that, it's a lot harder path to be able to get to that point. And so this film, from a uh, in terms of being able to inspire, is I'm hoping that it's able to accomplish that for some people. Then for the like decision to making it was just kind of circling back around. Uh, my I had a decline in my health and was at a point where I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna give this a go. I'm gonna really dive into sharing this experience, um, and being able to uh, and being able to do that was awesome and completely worth it. Since sharing that experience, sharing those experiences isn't necessarily the easiest thing, just because there's a lot behind it, and a lot of hard times, uh, but it also was um, a really great uh, overall experience of making the movie, where there was just the ability to kind of translate empathy and be able to have a creative outlet with it.
Thank you so much, Justin. And we'll let you here in a little bit get back to some more of those questions in the chat. We'll have some time for that as well. So now let's go to Abrianna, aka Miles. What was it like to be part of this project and to portray a character with F&D?
Yeah, no, um, I, it's always kind of this complicated thing of like when you portray something that you yourself don't have, right? Especially like in film and especially in theater, that's a really big conversation that happens of like, what stories can you tell as an actor depending on your situation, and like what's right, like that's always complicated. But having Justin there made me feel a lot better because I wasn't just doing it by myself. I was getting educated while I was filming, and I think that's one of the best things you can do is whenever you're making art, if you're learning something while doing it, then you've accomplished a lot. And but working with Justin was really great. I took some experiences I've had myself, not with seizures, but I do have like some physical, um, issues. And I also have, when I have panic attacks, I it's very physical. So there were parts of that that I recognized, even though it wasn't a seizure I was suffering, I still noticed that some of the symptoms were very similar to things I had experienced in the past. And so I'm just grateful for the learning opportunity. I am so grateful that the work that I've done in this and I've worked like and doing with Justin is going to be really meaningful. So, yeah. I'm just very grateful for this educational experience, because before this I didn't know that this was a thing. I was unaware, because in most people's minds it's just like, oh well, epilepsy is the only seizure, right? Like that's the big one. And so seeing how it really branches out and what people have is really important, and the names that they have that give context to their daily lives. And just, yeah, educational, great, 10 out of 10.
That sounds great.
Oh,
That
no.
sounds great, Abrianna. I think bringing education and awareness to things, because now you know about it, and then you can educate your circle, and
Yep.
then that will just kind of keep moving out. And so I think that's a great way to look at it. So Miles, the real Miles, we're gonna go to you next. And so can you tell us a little bit about your history with Justen, with JN Films, and projects that you're working on?
Yeah, sure. So I met Justen when I made a Facebook account in, well, maybe a little after. It was like 2012, and I was working on my first project, and I remember the words of like "never talk to strangers on the internet" like ringing in my ear. And here we are. Look at us. And Justen reached out because he was working on a project of his own, and we had to come across each other because Facebook had just started doing ads for like the first time ever, and they were giving everyone $50 worth of credit to try out the service. So I used it to promote my project, and it found Justen. And so Justen and I have been pals ever since, and he's come down to my area in Northern California and made stuff here, and just two peas in a pod. And then we both, Justen starts having seizures, and that's part of my diagnosis, and dislocating his shoulders, and that happens to me, and it's just whatever happens to me happens to Justen a couple of years later. So it's good to have a buddy who understands, right? And I also am, as I was talking before, I'm huge on epilepsy awareness. So I meet a lot of people who have seizures, and it does not fit just one profile. You can't make a movie that is about seizures because every experience is that different. And what I find is, furthermore, you can't really write fiction, because so many people have and experience seizures that regardless of what you write, somewhere someone has gone through, like they watch something like this and go, that is my life, sentence for sentence. And Justen's right, representation is really important. It's really, really important. And so I made a film called Under the Lights, which is now going to be a feature film, and it was a short film on YouTube about a boy with seizures who goes to prom knowing that the lights will make him have a seizure. And part of having a disability is just, it's the real torture of it, I think, for a lot of people, is just watching the world go on without you, and watching the world just do stuff that you just would kill to do, to just get up and do. And in my case, I don't drive. I can't drive. Just watching someone fill up a gas tank, brain off, just filling up the gas tank. They're not thinking about anything. Wow, I would love to do that, So, the work's really important. What Abrianna said is, it's a conversation that happens. Who should represent us? Who should represent us? And in I have to speak specifically from the epilepsy community, right? Because that's whom I, am entrenched with in my personal condition. But I find that we're in such a silo that it's really easy to get on the bandwagon of what other minorities have decided is right for representing themselves, and they can decide however they want to be represented. But for us, we're in such a silo that the only people that hear about us or show up to hear from us are us. And we have so few opportunities to have someone from the outside come forward who says, tell me everything. I want to know all about this. I've never heard of this before. Please tell me everything. I want to physically live in those shoes. That never happens. And I think it's this incredible opportunity to take someone whose profession, whose skill set is empathy, right? That's what an actor does. Their skill set, their training is empathy, to welcome that person in to live in our shoes. And my actor didn't have epilepsy, but I damn well sent him to become embedded in our community, right? He talked to parents, he talked to patients, he understood the whole burrito. And I kept no secrets from him. And because of that, the performance is authentic. And furthermore, then he goes out in the world and he came across a young person who was homeless because his parents had kicked him out because they didn't want to deal with his seizures anymore. Pierce knew how to find that person resources. He knew where the resources were. He had lived in the shoes of someone who had seizures, and that changed this young person's life, right? So I can't speak for racial minorities. I can't speak for, other disabilities, but for the subject of who should represent people who have seizures, I fully welcome anyone to take a shot because, if the portrayal is inauthentic, we as the community get to say so. We get to say, here's what you did wrong. But I want to live in a world in which anyone who is interested in this subject matter can go out and make a movie, because we have to live in a world where those movies are common if we want to be a mainstream conversation. We can't be a mainstream conversation if we won't let the mainstream talk about it, right? So this stuff's on my mind all the time, and so it's really special to see another film done authentically. And so I give Justen huge hugs and air fives for that. So congratulations.
Oh gosh. A lot of what you said hit home. Not for me specifically, but for my daughter and what I've seen her go through. And, to you both, I mean, I'd love to Under the Lights, Paradise. I mean, I'd love for like high schools and colleges to stream these films and to, like have assemblies and make the kids watch these things because it would just make it that much more tangible to them. I think right now, I mean, Molly has said things like, people say, oh, is she possessed? Or, oh, like what's just all the things. And it's just, it comes out of, lack of understanding and a lack of education and, just, so I just applaud you both for using your talents, your skills to bring awareness, in different ways, in ways that, because people love films and people love videos and people love, and so to just bring that different art form. So anyway, so now what we're going to do is, Justen, do we want to answer some questions from our chat?
Yes, yeah, I can pull up some that haven't been already answered through our conversation. So far, let me see, let's go to the first question. What advice do you have for recovery of hypersensitivity to sound, light, motion in front of them that triggers seizures? See. Oh, yeah, Ben, go ahead.
I can speak to this. So I think that physical stimuli, including sound, light, and are very common triggers of functional seizures. We have found very good results with psychotherapy, and particularly cognitive behavioral therapy I would say is the most commonly studied and commonly used treatment for functional seizures. I think other modalities of psychotherapy can be very effective. I've seen patients do very well with EMDR, mindfulness-based psychotherapy, psychodynamic-based psychotherapy. I would say CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy is usually the first line, or and I've seen patients do very well in terms of both identifying triggers, learning to avoid and manage triggers, and then also developing coping skills to use when they are encounter those triggers to prevent a functional seizure from arising. In some cases, physical therapy or occupational therapy can also be helpful. But I would say cognitive behavioral therapy and other modalities of psychotherapy are kind of like the first line treatment. And I would really recommend, if you have a diagnosis of functional seizures, working with your physician's neurologist and primary care doctor to get access to psychotherapy, and particularly cognitive behavioral therapy. If you're looking for more information on the web, neurosymptoms.org, which I'll put in the chat perhaps, is a really nice starting point to learn more information.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Tolchin. I'll also say Molly has seizures, functional seizures, and some things that we have found. You can always use there are glasses that you can use. She has used sunglasses even indoors before, just to kind of help with maybe some of the lights. You can always do noise canceling headphones too for sound. And also, always the deep breaths really kind of help too when your nervous system gets kind of all hyper aroused. Just some deep breathing, as some things that Molly has found specifically too for the sensory sensitivities. What's next, Justen?
Yeah, so I think kind of a really good question that kind of branches off of that is, what advice on distracting yourself during a seizure to possibly stop it? I know just something, a tool I use personally is using mindfulness exercises when I have the opportunity to. For me, not every seizure is not exactly the same, where there's warning signs or not, there's a level of cognition or not. It varies for me from seizure to seizure, but when I have the opportunity to, try to have a singular focus. That's something I really try to emphasize, whether it is, particularly from a sensory standpoint, whether it's if there's the ability to, like, feeling like the texture on an article of clothing, having a focal point, being able to do that, or if there is like consistent non-triggering sound in the room, like if there's like a favorite song that happens to be playing, kind of focusing in on that. That's just something. For me, it's not. I'm not able to do that for every single seizure, but for some of them, that's something that's I found to be effective.
Does anybody else want to? Go ahead, Bridget.
We also have a list on the website of other distraction techniques. I'd also encourage people to download My FND, the app. There's also distraction techniques on that. I know one particular one that people found helpful is getting like a pitcher of cold water and putting their hand into it, and that kind of just awakens the senses and seems to hold off seizures at times. But I, also with that caveat of always make sure that you're in a safe place, that you have someone, with you, especially trying maybe a new technique that you haven't tried before, to make sure you do it safely.
Great. Thanks, Bridget. Justen, what's next?
Yeah. And through. So somebody asked, anyone ever entertained a podcast discussing the disease and its complexity, along with helpful ways to manage it to live a fuller life? I think that's a good one for Bridget and Amanda.
Well, we do have a lot of videos. We used to do a lot of webinars in the past. And so there, if you go to our YouTube channel, we have a lot of videos on there. We will also November 9th, I believe it's at 10 Mountain Time AM and 12 Eastern. We'll have a Q&A with Dr. Johnstone, where we're just going to go through some basics of FND and discuss, functional disorders and seizures. Patients can ask questions. It is not a place to diagnose, and it won't be, to get specific treatment. But we'll hopefully an opportunity like this to ask some questions and learn more.
There are also several podcasts, and I would have to go to my Twitter feed and scroll down. But there is the FND Society has podcasts. We can put a link into the FND Society website. They do podcasts. There's also, it's My Life with FND, or there are several podcasts. I will say that. Done either by people with FND that talk about how they live their own lives, and they have different guests on there as well that discuss FND as from a patient perspective, as well as also medical providers that will come on and answer questions about FND. So definitely look in wherever you find your podcast for those.
Great. So the next question up here, that we'll do this one and then one more after that before we have our final panel question. They write, I suffer these episodes so randomly, often around eating. Is there any known correlations, or are they random?
Dr. Tolchin, do you have anything?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So again, I think sort of physiologic triggers like flashing lights, eating, pain, migraine headaches are all very commonly seen triggers for functional seizures. There is a lot of variation from individual to individual. There's a lot of variability in this disorder. And one of the sort of focuses in treatment and in psychotherapy is sort of identifying triggers for your individual case, because there's gonna be so much variability. And then once you've identified the triggers, developing a plan to manage your exposure to those triggers, and also skills, like Justen was describing, mindfulness. For other folks, focused deep breathing. For other folks, sequential body relaxation. There are a lot of different coping mechanisms, and it's important to sort of figure out the coping mechanisms that work well for you, and then to practice them both in times where you're not experiencing stress, and then in times where you are experiencing stress, in order to develop the effectiveness of those coping mechanisms. And that's something that is done during the psychotherapeutic process.
Well, and also to piggyback off of what Dr. Tolchin had said, is sometimes when patients can't find a specific reason, and one, they may never find something, but there's also what we call trigger stacking. And sometimes, your body has this level of tolerance, and perhaps, you're stressed because you do have things maybe going on at work or home, but then on top of that, you maybe add something else like a cold, or maybe you've added another outside influence of noise, a dog barking outside, and those each stack up until that final one that kind of throws your nervous system off. And that could be something different every time, but learning to try to take that and maintain kind of a level of balance, I guess, and recognize, like, maybe I am experiencing cold symptoms, so I need to be more careful with something else, and not maybe go to, do something that I would have normally done that maybe would have been too much. And so maybe just keeping an eye on if you're trigger stacking things.
It's good information.
Okay, so the last chat question, which is how do you deal with having seizures in public? Uh, that is a really good question. Uh, I'll I'll answer, and then if Miles, you also want to take the opportunity to just with your own experiences. I know uh, for me, I can kind of break it down into two different kind of situations. One is having somebody or having people around that uh, know of what you're experiencing. Then also one where you don't have people around where you don't know anyone. Like if you're in, for example, in a store, uh, yeah. If you have people around, then uh, that are familiar, having a providing information. Uh, I've done this in the past of having a list of kind of what to do in my particular situation. If X, Y, and Z happen during the seizure, since I know for me not every seizure is exactly the same in terms of representation. Then there's also the factor if like I've had happen a couple times. I initially, before my body seizes up, I kind of faint and hit my head, um, and that's kind of a different, uh, different management too. But having people around, just kind of providing information ahead of time, and then in a situation where you don't have people that are familiar around, this is just through my experience, is really trying to, really practice that singular focus, focus on what's in your control, whether it's like the various exercises, like working on your breathing, working on your sensories, um, kind of uh, creating a singular focus. Since the experience of having a seizure is already overwhelming, then if you're in a public environment, that is another layer. So trying to pare it down to that um, is definitely um, something that's helpful, since I know there's how it would be nice to be able to have some sort of control over how people that aren't familiar react. Um, but that that there's an element of that that's not in uh, they're not in like my control when that's happened. So I say the main point is just kind of focus on what you can do in that situation. Um, yeah, since to be truthful, it's not easy, uh, uh, if you if you're able to prepare or be able to kind of focus on things that are have been practiced, then that can set yourself up better. And Miles, do you want to share or?
Sure. Well, obviously my experience is going to be entirely different because I have a completely different condition, but um, I think that it's about learning to be able to confidently explain your needs ahead of time where possible. Um, it's a skill, but if you can sound like you know uh, you're not afraid, then generally the other person is going to be less afraid because there's not a cue there to pick up on that it sounds like a scary thing, because usually the things we need accommodating, whether it be uh, socially or medically, they're pretty simple things that just require basic empathy, and most people want to be that person. Most people identify as good people. They want to believe that they're the person who would do the right thing if something happened. and it's just about appealing to that, right? And part of it is just the slow battle of awareness. But with our immediate connections, there is a long, slow journey of learning how to share that crazy balance of like, am I sharing or oversharing? Am I freaking them out? It's all that, it's self-check stuff. But once you can confidently explain what it is that you need, um, it's a really good first step with any disability.
That's great. Miles, thanks so much. We're going to go on now to the very last question, and everybody's going to answer the same one. And that's basically, what does the future look like? What's next? So we're going to start with Bridget. Bridget, what's next?
Well, I mentioned the webinar that we have coming up on the 9th. So we're really excited about that. We haven't done one for a while, so we encourage everyone to join us, and that will be internationally. So it doesn't matter where you're at. Please, find the link. We'll be advertising on all of our social media pages. But also going forward, we plan to try to have, correspond more with our community to find out what they actually need and want. So I know that's something, Amanda, that you were working on. And we, of course, always have our awareness month every April. And so last year we lit up some really amazing places, Niagara Falls and some bridges around America and UK and Australia. So we're hoping to take that up another notch. So we encourage others to also get involved there. The peer platform research that we have registry, like I said, that'll be in the next few months, I think, hopefully sooner, but we really encourage anyone that has functional diagnosis to be a part of that and to come and help really move research along. Also, if you have like 23andMe, you'll be able to connect your research to that. So that's also going to take things, I think, to another level for our research community. A couple projects, and I won't discuss the one because I know we're working closely with Dr. Tolchin on that, and I'll let him talk about it. But we're working on outcome measures for research and how we can measure to see if these treatments are working or not. So there are a lot of places our hands and things are going, and lots of exciting advocacy, I think, coming forward. So we're really excited about that. So, and thank you for letting me be part of this panel, and it's been exciting. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Bridget. I will also say, just having a kiddo, we are doing a lot more in the pediatric space as well, just because, you think that there's not much out there for adults. Well, there's even less for kids. So there is a pediatric consortium that was in the US and has now grown global and has become a special interest group as part of the FND Society. So that's really exciting work as well, being done by lots of great providers around the globe. So Dr. Tolchin, that'll kind of lead into you. Then what's next for you?
Yeah, so, beyond clinical care, one thing that I'm really focused on at the moment is developing guidelines for the management of functional seizures. So the American Academy of Neurology produces evidence-based guidelines for various disorders and situations, and has actually approved a guideline for the management of functional seizures, which is the first of its kind. So this will involve a systematic review of all the studies that have been done on the treatment of functional seizures, and then making recommendations based on that. And the hope is that this will raise awareness of the disorder and sort of like the evidence basis for treatment among the medical community as well as for patients. It's going to be a long process. We're a few months into it, and we anticipate that it's going to take multiple years, unfortunately. But the hope is that this will be a guideline that can be approved not only by the American Academy of Neurology, but by other professional organizations, including FNDS, which was mentioned already here, and the American Epilepsy Society, the European Academy of Neurology, and other organizations to really move treatment forward on a global scale. And I'm really glad that Bridget and FND Hope have signed on to participate in developing these guidelines as patient representatives and advocacy representatives, because I think that's a really important part of developing guidelines, is the patient and advocate perspective.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you're doing, Dr. Tolchin. It's so important, and just being a voice and a provider for F&D, I know it's just so needed. So thank you for everything that you're doing. Abrianna, what is next for you?
Oh man, well, big question. As I said, I'm my last year of college of undergrad, so I'm just doing grad school applications. And looking into doing drama therapy is the special niche thing I wanted to do. So beyond that, I'm hoping to get more involved in projects just like this, just helping raise awareness where I can, giving voices, talking about experiences, just being within the community. I think is one of the most important things we can do. And after the past couple of years, I feel like we're really yearning for community. So things like that. I don't know. I'm really excited. It's all very up in the air still.
Great. Thank you. Miles, what's up next for you?
Yeah, sure. So the Under the Lights feature is in development with a production company that I am obsessed with called Vanishing Angle. And you can go see the short film Under the Lights on YouTube, or get updates. And you can also see the short on underthelightsfilm.com. Justen was, I saw, sweet enough to put the website in there. That was really nice. And I do a lot of public speaking, so which I never signed up for, but now it's my everyday gig, which is wonderful. So I'm hopping around to different places to talk about why it's important to talk about seizures and in my case epilepsy, and I just truly love what I do. So it's the disability that keeps on giving.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you so much for everything you're doing, Miles. I'd love to connect at another time and hear more about some of your speaking engagements and the things that you're doing. So just congratulations on everything that's going on with Under the Lights. It's great news.
Thank you. It's very nice.
And last but certainly not least, Justen, what is next for you?
That's a good question. So I think the first thing with this film, just trying to continue to promote opportunities, especially the this part of it, the education around it and awareness. Just do whatever I can with that, and then from there, I have more projects, in the works, and then after then one of them has part of it is it's in production. It's called Emerson. Part of it is the main character experiences functional seizures, and then also has the portrayal of another condition I have, OCD, and having it kind of be a little bit narratively, the baseline story be not directly related, but some of the experiences and some of the traits the character has being a lot more inspired by some of my personal experiences, and doing that in a really interesting, creative way. So that, and then also just continuing to find opportunities to improve my health. Since I'm currently being evaluated for on in addition fibromyalgia, just and so that's there's a lot in the works, and then also I get to spend time with family, and that's been a constant constant beautiful thing over the past 3 years in my life, and yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Q&A panel, and for everyone who attended. I think it's been very informative and supportive for many of you out there. And so, so looking forward to all the new things and what's next up for everyone. So thanks again for joining us. And that's a wrap.
Yep, that's a wrap.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Great
you.
job, Justin. Congratulations.
Thank you.